Why hello there, my name's Ark, and I am a penguin, and tomorrow is the big spook day. There's going to be so much going on. There's going to be costumes, parties, diabetes, scares, existential panics because of the realization that 2020 is almost over. Oh, God.
Well, since it's almost the end of 2020, I thought I'd take a bit to talk about what I want from Nintendo. A bit of a wish list, per se. This isn't necessarily what I want from Nintendo in 2021, but what I want from Nintendo in general. And keep in mind that Nintendo is my favorite company of all time, so anything that might sound like I'm attacking Nintendo is just simple criticism. Well, let's start off with one of the most generic things that every Nintendo wishlist has, which is more info on Breath of the Wild 2. We've only got a teaser trailer, and it would really be nice to get a full-on trailer. And I know that the direct announcing Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity did talk about how they were still working on the game. It would just be really nice to actually, see it. And if we do get a full trailer, I do not expect it to be gameplay at all, since Nintendo takes their sweet time with each Zelda entry, and that's not a bad thing. I appreciate that they take their time on their entries, unlike other bad franchises like Call of Duty and Assassin's Creed, who have yearly release schedules just so that way they can milk the franchise so they can make more money. As for what I personally want in Breath of the Wild 2, I'd like it to follow a similar vibe to Majora's Mask, a little bit darker and more serious than other entries like Skyward Sword. And that's not to say that Skyward Sword doesn't have some dark moments in it. I just feel like the game had a bit more of a lighter tone, whereas games like Majora's Mask visually appeared much darker and more serious. And speaking of Majora's Mask, I would love to see a return to Termina. It's just that almost every Zelda game has taken place in Hyrule, and as a huge Majora's Mask fan, I would love to see a land to the return of Termina, especially in the open world setting of Breath of the Wild. See what Termina has to offer, much like how we didn't know that certain things in Hyrule existed until the open world setting in Breath of the Wild. And this is one that I think that a lot of people will probably find a bit weird to be on a wish list. I don't want the name to be Breath of the Wild 2. I want it to be The Legend of Zelda Breath of Something, and not Breath of the Wild 2.
Most importantly, I do not want it to be just the same game with just a few new mechanics added. My neighbor does this with his most popular franchise. I'm not going to name names because I really don't want to start any drama, but here's a picture of us together.
Pikmin is a series that I unfortunately haven't played much of since I don't own a GameCube anymore, and I never got to buying the Wii versions or Pikmin 3.
I literally had to use the Pikmin 3 Deluxe demo to get footage for this section.
However, what I have played, I loved. And since Pikmin is a lesser-known series by Nintendo, I'd love to see a new game create new fans. And since I haven't played much of Pikmin, I can't really say exactly what I want from Pikmin 4 other than for it to, exist. However, I can say that I'd love to see a return to motion controls and maybe some new characters. I also really want it to come out on the Switch since as of the time I'm recording this, it is the highest selling console in America. Seriously, if you want a Switch, just look under your bed, there's probably one there. Because of how well the Switch is doing, and because of the track record of other franchises that didn't do so well until they came to the Switch, I'd be surprised if Pikmin 4 didn't become the best-selling Pikmin.
Nintendo is easily the father of the most iconic video game franchises of all time. You got your Mario, your Zelda, and your Pokemon. Everybody's played at least one game from at least one of these franchises, and if you say otherwise, then you're a liar. But Nintendo also has some amazing franchises that will make non-Nintendo fans go, "Ah!"
One of Nintendo's biggest problems is that they don't give lesser-known IPs a chance. Like seriously, the last good chibi robo game was the first one. And while some of these IPs are well-known like Animal Crossing and Star Fox, it always annoyed me that Pokemon got 9 mainline games on the DS, and Star Fox only got 1. And I understand that Star Fox doesn't need more than 1 entry on each Nintendo system, but the fact that Pokemon got 9 and Star Fox only got 1 just boggles my mind. And I'm not saying that the Pokemon games that came out on the DS are bad, they're in fact my favorite Pokemon games, it just feels a bit unfair. So my third wish is that Nintendo would include some other franchises with the big ones. And I'm not saying that Nintendo should stop making Mario, Zelda, and Pokemon games. I'm just saying, give the other franchises you have a chance. And with how well the Switch is doing right now, it would be the perfect time for a new Pikmin or Kid Icarus game. Now, Nintendo criminally underuses some of their best franchises, but what about something new altogether?
And please, don't think I forgot about Splatoon and ARMS. But I would just prefer to have a new IP that isn't this, or this.
Splatoon and ARMS are Nintendo's newest IPs, and don't get me wrong, I love both of them, I just have an incredibly low attention span.
What am I doing?
So games that are meant to be repetitive and competitive don't really interest me. I would love to see a new IP from Nintendo that isn't online based, and it can have online, I just don't want the full experience to be online, like Splatoon and ARMS. I would also like this new IP to be either a 3D platformer or an RPG or maybe even something completely new. I'd also like a harder difficulty for this new IP. I don't want it to be Dark Souls level because, I prefer to not get PTSD, but I also don't want it to be baby's first new Nintendo IP. I'd also love for it to focus on exploration and have a world made to be explored with secrets and Easter eggs for you to discover. Kind of like Breath of the Wild, but obviously not Breath of the Wild. Super Mario Odyssey 2 is one of the most requested games and is most likely on everybody's wish list. Except mine. I want something brand new like Super Mario 64 to Sunshine and Sunshine to Galaxy. I really want a brand new way to traverse levels like Flood or Cappy to spice things up in the gameplay department, which is probably why I don't want an Odyssey 2 since we've already used Cappy quite a bit. I'd also like to see a set setting, much like Super Mario Sunshine in the beach setting. And while I do love the diversity in Mario games, I'd just like to see what they could do with one set theme throughout the whole game, such as what they did with Sunshine. Maybe a circus or futuristic theme. And those aren't serious ideas, just examples. Except maybe the circus theme. I feel like there's a game I'm forgetting. Also, I love it whenever Mario introduces new enemies. And Odyssey did introduce some new enemies, but I would still love some brand new additions to the Mario roster of things to stomp on.
Pokemon has always been one of my favorite franchises of all time, and next year will be the franchise's 25th anniversary. And what better way to celebrate than with not a new generation?
Pokemon Diamond and Pearl are easily some of the most beloved Pokemon games of all time. Ever since Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, people have been wondering when the next remakes were going to happen, and more importantly, what games they would be remakes of. Obviously, after Generation 3 remakes, everybody was begging for Generation 4 remakes, including myself. And then in 2018, a new Pokemon game was announced for the Switch. I don't know about you, but I was sure it was going to be either a new generation or Diamond and Pearl remakes. But then the Pokemon Company said, nope, here's the failed love child of Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Go, though. Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee are easily the most underwhelming Pokemon games I have ever played. They aren't bad, they're just not good. Let's start off simple. I am begging that the Gen 4 remakes won't use the Pokemon Go mechanic like Let's Go. That mechanic was not meant for consoles, and it shows. I also want an orchestrated remake of the Gen 4 soundtrack. I adore the Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum soundtrack, so an orchestrated score would be so good. For this next wish, I might need to sound the bad opinion alarm. I don't want the wild area in these games. In Sword and Shield, the wild area works perfectly because the world was crafted around it. But I don't think it would work in remakes of a game that didn't originally have it. And if it does have the wild area, I won't be disappointed. I'll just be a bit confused and a bit concerned.
Well, there you go. Those were some of my wishes for Nintendo moving forward. It's a pretty solid list, I think. And of course, I couldn't fit everything I want onto this wish list, but those were just the main things that I want. But enough of that. Suck it, losers. I got invited to a Halloween party. I cannot wait to get terminal diabetes. That was the best Halloween party I've ever been to.